Hello, welcome to Therapy JA. Each week we interview different mental health advocates, mental health professionals to get a perspective on different careers for people in the mental health industry. The focus of Therapy JA is to remove the negative stigma of mental health, to show that mental health is a sickness as everything that can be treated, as well as to kind of remove any negative interpretations of mental health and to clear the cloud and provide clarity on issues with mental health. And each week, as I said, we're interviewing pastors, we interview therapists, child psychologists, even physiotherapists, as well as occupational therapists. And so today I have Stacy Ann Smith, a child psychologist. Hi, Stacy Ann, how are you doing?
Hello, Stephen. I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me on your show today.
Hey, thank you. Oh, thank you so much for doing this. It was so last minute and short notice. But Stacy, could you please tell us about yourself? How did you end up becoming, what got you into therapy, and your story?
Sure. Well, it's not as glamorous as maybe your other therapists, but I actually wanted to be a lawyer because I was told I talk a lot. Not much of a reason to be a lawyer. And so I had in my head and the trajectory of doing law, but certain circumstances it didn't work out in terms of what subject I took for A levels back when we took A levels, putting my age on it there. So I went to my guidance counselor at school, go to guidance counselor people, and she did a assessment was to help you to figure out based on who you are and what you like, what kind of jobs would work for you. And psychology and counseling came up, and I was like, I mean, a counselor at camp, does that count? Like, I didn't understand what counseling was, obviously. All I knew was camp counselors. So I followed that trajectory, did sociology and certain subjects in CAPE and A levels because I was kind of the guinea pig year for CAPE. And then went to college and did psychology and psychological counseling. And initially was planning on doing like family and marriage and relationships, but most of the experience or the jobs I would get would be with children and teenagers. And so me as a Christian, I believe in, God ordaining your life. So I think he just pointed me in the direction where I was supposed to be. So that's how I ended up doing psychology and continued to be doing it for the past 12 years.
Wow. And you felt like God called you specifically towards children. How did you get that inclination?
Um, Really, I just see that most of the jobs I would get would be with children. I mean, now it's been more women and women who have been in the area, who have been exploited, who've been abused, raped, trafficked. Those are the demographic I tend to be seeing right now. And again, I just think it's the season and tradition I'm supposed to be in right now to help these women based on my exposure and focus to trauma and how trauma affects people and the effects of trauma long term, both as a child or even as an adult. So it's more seeing where I keep getting pulled into as opposed to a divine download, so to speak.
Okay. So, all right. So I have first question I have is basically like, um, what do you see as like the main challenges that affect children in Jamaica? Like, in regards to trauma.
Okay, in regards to trauma, I think one of the main reasons, although I believe that we are way more advanced in terms of acknowledging it, is that culturally we are very, something happens to you, you just move on. And that's phasing out now, I believe, more as many of the government and private institutions are highlighting the effects of trauma. But I do still believe that some of that cultural view of things are bad, it happened, move on, or things are bad, don't talk about it, especially if it affects like family or it affects, the image of a group, maybe a church group or a service group. So you just don't talk about certain things. And so because you can't talk about it, you can't resolve it, you can't address it, or because the culture is still breaking free from the things happen, move on, stop dwelling on it for so long, a child is then forced to quickly move on from a traumatic event as opposed to getting the time to process it and go through it and having the support of adults during that time. We're not dismissive of All right, you cried last week, you went to therapy, you should be over it now. You get what I'm saying? Yeah.
That happens a lot. People like that happens a
That
lot.
happens more often than it should. It happens more often than it should, but it actually is way less now. I do believe many, especially millennials, are more open to getting the help for their children and themselves as it relates to trauma. But I still think it's ingrained, so to speak, in our culture that it's taking time to fully break free from that. You can't see it. If you have a head concussion, I can see the band-aid. My child gets a boo-boo on their knee, I can see the cut and I can watch it heal. Something that's emotional, mental, internal, or physical eyes can't see the progress or the healing. And so we take a longer time we quickly move on thinking they should move on.
Yeah, but what is the healing process for that? Because the thing is, when you have a wound, right, and a wound heals, there'll be a scab. You know what I mean? But normally over time that goes. Emotionally, when we have trauma or we have pain, it's there. And even if you're like, oh, I've forgiven this person, you still have it. And sometimes when you process it and think over it, it could that you're basically reliving it. You know what I mean? So what exactly is healing? What do you consider emotional healing, and how does one what represents fully moving on from it? Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. I think so. Emotional healing is a process. And when you experience a traumatic event, it affects several important areas of your life. So it triggers a part of your brain that deals with responses to dangerous situation or dangerous stimuli. Now, if you have one dangerous thing that happens, so let's say somebody side swipes you when you're driving on the road. The part of your brain that deals with responding to dangerous stimuli is awakened, and it shuts down the rational part of your brain that would think about making step one, step two, step three, step four. That part is not needed right now because we need the immediate response. So that happens one time and you adjust. You move your car quickly out of the way and you continue. And so the rest of your body, which is your heart rate going up and your nervous system reacting, your tension of your body, it begins to slowly come back down. That was one time. However, depending on the intensity of the trauma, so let's say rape, seeing somebody get murdered, constantly experiencing persons berating you emotionally and verbally, the part of your brain that deals with responding to dangerous stimuli is now constantly on. It doesn't stop and come down and bring you back to homeostasis, so to speak. When that is something that's constantly triggered, you now live in a state of hypervigilance. So every relationship is dangerous. Every situation seems dangerous. It affects you being able to have healthy relationships. It affects you being able to focus in class. So sometimes there could be a misdiagnosis of ADHD because the child is either easily distracted or zoned out, and you're thinking they're just not paying attention. Yeah. So if you don't process those things, i.e., through counseling, for some people through medication, some people have to get medicated to be able to reduce these symptoms, and then, of course, go through the counseling, you can now live permanently with these emotional issues. And so healing looks like processing medication for some people, not all the time, so that when you're coming out of it, you're able to properly discern a healthy scenario, a healthy relationship. You're better able to stay focused. You're able to identify your triggers so that it doesn't control you, and you're able to control for when it happens. You get what I'm saying? Am I clear? Hope you're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
able to understand.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but no, no, you're making sense. I understand what you're saying. All right. How do you feel about the stigma of mental health in Jamaica now?
I really think we're getting better. Honestly, I really do think when I started in 2011, 12, I would have parents coming in only because a school required them to, or in an extreme case with their child, and they would then drop off the child as the issue and then leave, not realizing they have to be part of the process. Because, children are in a system. Even if they get better, they go back into the system that triggered the behavior in the first place. So I do think we're getting better. I think we need to stay getting properly educated, because I went to a conference once and one of the presenters talked about the fact that there's such high prevalence of misinformation on social media. What happens is persons who either from their experience or even persons who are in the profession give bite-sized snippets of information that either mislead persons or cause persons to self-diagnose, like in the era of what was that app on WebMD? So like WebMD, it tells you if you have cancer because you check out some symptoms. Same thing now happening with mental health. 3 persons share a video and now you have schizophrenia. Like misinformation is causing a problem. So I think we need to ensure that we're putting out correct information like what you're doing here. I think it's very helpful, getting a fulsome understanding of what therapy is and how it affects you, and then also continuing to get the help as needed.
I feel like the stigma is kind of, it annoys me now because I feel like it's a cool thing to be like, yo, check on people's mental health. You know, if you care about persons. Can you hear me?
Because your hand was in your mouth, I kind of lost some of the words you were saying a while
Oh,
ago.
okay. Well, no,
Your hand like this, that you kind of lost it. What were you saying?
no, I was saying I feel like it's a cool thing to be like about, you know, mental health and be like, oh, you don't know people are going through big, huh?
It's buzzworthy.
Yeah, but I'm always, it's people that are mean and horrible that are always the ones that are like, yo, you don't know what people are going through, check up on your friends. But when your friends are going through stuff, you really don't want to check up because it's kind of like, oh, I don't want to be around negativity. I need to kind of, you know what I mean? So I feel like there's a movement of toxic positivity where if someone is like really going through stuff, you're kind of like, boy, I don't really want to help you with this, you know, or you're too negative, or like, you know what I mean? It's like you're being negative when you're really going, when people ask you, what are you really going through? And you're like, I'm actually going through this. I'm actually stressed out about this. And most people will kind of like want to avoid you. You know what I mean? Like they'll avoid the person, you know?
Crossing the switchblade. There's this place where we're being told to protect ourselves and be healthy, but part of human interaction requires being in the trenches with a person who is going through. And it takes some amount of discernment and self-awareness and healthiness to be able to know when it's something you're supposed to stick through with somebody and when it's something you're supposed to be like, okay, let me take you to get the help you need because I am unable to, as opposed to leaving you and being like, cutting you off of 2024 or whatever people say these days.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm cutting this person off. And it's not even really like a healthy discussion. It's just ghosting. Like, you know what I mean? Not even like explaining. It's just like, I'm not reaching out to this person.
It takes serious work to have hard conversations, though. It takes serious work.
But most relationships grow when you have the uncomfortable conversations. And most people don't like uncomfortable conversations.
Most For multiple reasons. It could be trauma that you've experienced. You've never seen somebody respond to a confrontation in a healthy way. So you are afraid to do it, or you are unable to even process yourself. So you can't have a healthy conversation. So it's not always just, it's not, I don't think it's laziness. I really think it's fair. It's fear of the outcome or fear of what you will do in the moment because you haven't learned how to do it.
All right, so what ways are you involved in the local community to promote mental health for like children and families?
Okay, so one, I'm a therapist, so I definitely engage in promoting it in terms of my community of persons who I work with. I have done lots of speaking engagements at churches and schools about mental health, how to provide support for children, how to address things like technology and children during this time. I have done workshops, schools. So I really try my best to be a part of influencing the change in the culture.
How do you feel about the church's approach to mental health? Because I feel like a lot of times there was a movement more for I think the Ministry of Health had a thing where it was like linking up with pastors for mental health. I don't know if you remember that thing. And then we had like the wellness. There was a movement and
But I think we're getting much better. I really think culturally, and when culture changes, all the other sub institutions or subcultures change. So when the culture begins to make a demand for addressing mental health, the subcultures do. And I think the churches want and getting better. And I also think the fact that many cases of many cases of misuse of power and control have come out and has caused churches to turn, do an about face and go, okay, we can't not address mental health. We can't not address the issues that come from abuse, divorce, whatever, challenging parenthood. Like I'm seeing more. I mean, even my church, I really think it's doing a very good job. We have several therapists that attend my church. It probably helps. But I'm seeing more churches. It might not be as strong in traditional churches, but it takes a little bit longer to get more traditional churches to kind of woo and free up. But I do think culturally we are getting better. I'm going to a church thing this month about mental health and human trafficking. So I do think we're getting better.
Is it a discussion?
I was doing a presentation on mental health and human trafficking, but it's like a relationship conference slash singles thing. And I was like, wow, it's a traditional church in a more rural area. I was like, look at us coming out of the woodworks and getting the help that we need and the information that we need. Yes, man, don't sleep on the church. They're getting together, they're getting it together.
Okay. I hope we do. I really do hope that we do. So you work with CLF as a counselor as well?
Not in an official capacity. So ethically, there's a thing called dual relationships. And so what you don't want to do is counsel clients who you have close proximity to. But there is a network of persons there who provide grief counseling, mental health counseling. And if it's somebody far removed enough, they'll refer me for counseling as well. But I tend to, if you're my friend, if you're a colleague, I don't counsel you. It's like a surgeon. You don't surgery on your family members because emotionally you're invested. And so it's hard for you to be objective. And also there's a power dynamic. So because I know all your deep, dark secrets, you come to church, you sit beside me, and you're like, that lady over there, no, what I did last week. You can't function. And if I want something from you, you're going to be so willing to give it to me, not because you necessarily feel that way, but there's some kind of indebtedness to me because I'm a therapist. So ethically, I don't see people in my church circles directly, but a referral from another church circle, definitely.
Okay. All right. Okay, so how do you encourage? Huh?
What does that face mean? You're like,
Um,
okay.
I'm really just listening, trust me. There's no judgment, I'm listening. Okay, so how do you encourage and involve parents in the therapeutic process? Because, you know what I mean? Because you were saying earlier that they'll just drop them, picking them off, and make you talk to them, but there needs to be actually a process where you and them are sitting together. How that work?
Mm-hmm. I had a very good supervisor in my early stages of child psychology, and she really pushed me to see the importance of parental involvement in the process. So she taught me how to, even from the first intake, not have the children come at all. And so we spent time explaining, not only getting the information, but explaining what therapy is, explaining the requirements that I would have for them, explaining how they can support their child, addressing the cultural thing of wanting to ask your child at the end of every session, so what did you guys talk about? That does not give them the freedom to be able to talk because they're not able to give you an evaluation at the end. So even something simple as being like, if they bring it up to you, yes. If they don't, do not do the, so what you did today, so what you did today. They're not going to feel free to talk to me. Then during the counseling, after like a first few sessions, I bring back in the parent and give them an update on what happened. And based on the case, involve them in some of the sessions so that they can be able to hear from their child with a third party in the middle, helping to decode, because communication is a heck of a thing. My goodness. So I help to decode what's happening between mommy and daddy and child, and help them to be able to express completely what is happening. So that's part of what I do to help bring the parents into the process. And I also, depending on the case, I have had to refer them for their own counseling so that they can get the support they need to be healthy enough to support their child.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point because I feel like a lot of parents don't do the work. I feel like our parents really don't see the necessity of it. There still is, I think there's an open stigma amongst us that, it's not as bad as it was. But if you tell your parents they need to see counseling, I remember one time I told my dad that, and it was almost like he wanted to fight. Because like he felt offended. I was like, yo, I think you should do some counseling. And he was absolutely upset.
I have never seen no, me not say that. It is harder for a parent to hear from their child that they need help than it might be for a pair. And it's same for us. Some things we just don't want to hear from our parents, but then our friends hears and we're like, oh, for real? Oh, okay. Or somebody else, a third party. That's part of why I make a big effort not to be seen as the parent in the situation. And I realize, and it's part of how why counseling works, we're not telling you what to do. We help you to get to the place where you see what's going on and you make a decision. That's the only way you're going to change. You don't need another teacher telling you what to do, or a parent or adult telling you what to do. But if you realize, based on the conversation, based on us highlighting to you, you see that? I'm observing this. And notice a theme in the conversation. And they're like, oh, I did it with a client recently. She's talking, and every time it would get to a place where there was going to be some openness, and I would highlight it, she would giggle. I'm like, I realize every time I highlight something you're feeling or give you feedback, you giggle. What's that about? And she goes, I feel exposed. I said, now how does that affect you being able to be in relationships if you're afraid of being seen? And she has a eureka moment of, oh, okay, I can't want to have healthy relationships if I don't allow persons to see me. I could have told her that, but her own aha moment helped her to get there.
Ooh, you guided her through the process. Yeah, no, that was good. That was a good part of it. All right. How do you work with children who have experienced trauma? And is there a difference in how you work with a regular child and a child that has experienced trauma?
Hmm. I The only difference I would say is the so I have particular therapeutic programs that I would use, and so I probably would zone into a particular therapeutic program for a person who has presented with trauma from the intake. So in the intake, when I'm talking to the parents about what it is that's happening, if right away I assess for trauma, then I will go straight away to like a trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy, or trauma focused acceptance therapy, or trauma focused, depending on what I'm doing with the person. But if it is somebody who is presenting with general behavioral problems, I might reach for different techniques in that session. But the general focus for all sessions is to be trauma sensitive, because you never know if something will come up in the conversation where you're like, okay, that is actually trauma. Because remember, trauma is more than just what we would consider. I think you have a general idea of trauma. You've been raped, you've been abused, you've been you saw murder. But there's also consistent berating of a child. There's also neglect. There's also your parents going through a divorce. That's traumatic, you know. Yeah, that's considered trauma.
Hold on. What's the levels of that though? Because I can have trauma where I lost my dog. No, I'm saying that what levels do you consider trauma? Because, okay, when is it trauma, or when is this person being sensitive? So like, like, okay, because as I said, like, you know, I had a friend that lost his father. Like, father died in like a gun war. That is trauma. You know what I mean? When he was younger, father died in front of him. Well, technically not in front of him. He was like running, and his father was like, "Don't look back." And he sees the blood in like his periphery, and he just keeps running. Like, that is incredibly traumatic. But what would you consider? Is it that if it's traumatic for the child, then it's trauma? Like,
A traumatic experience is an adverse experience. An adverse, well, it's something called adverse childhood experiences, which is when you've gone through adverse or traumatic experiences in your childhood and how it can affect you as you grow up. I do believe there are intensities of trauma that people experience. But I think it's very important that we don't spend time evaluating if that can be considered trauma, because then we run the risk of not validating a person's experience. And I can understand the reason to not want to let there be a broad brush, because I do think trauma has become a buzzword. And it's part of why I've been studying more or reading more upon resilience, because I think it's important that not only do we acknowledge bad that has happened and process bad, but understand that resilience can help you to overcome. No matter what, there are people who have been in some terrible situations, who like run major corporations and are doing really big things, or have used the pain to help others get through. So I said all that to say I don't think we should spend time evaluating if that's worthy of being called trauma. Um, but to spend the time being self-aware enough internally, because the thing with counseling is you're processing you self-aware enough to be like, okay, what bias do I have that would make me want to look at your experience and not validate it? And two, how can I be self-aware enough to not allow what I have been through to be a crutch or a brick on my shoulder? What can I do to be able to overcome what I've been through? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've had a situation of that where I had some issues with the church and I really did not like how the pastor had handled it. And I was telling it to a friend and I just felt like the more I was telling her how was receiving it, the more she was just invalidating it and just kind of being like, no, the pastor is, you know what I mean? And there was a frustration of being like, yo, I like, it may not be that big of an issue, because then she was like, yo, if you think what he said to you was bad, what he said to me was worse. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like a, you know
A
what I mean?
very human response. Yes.
Yeah, so it was just kind of like, I get it, but you're invalidate, like you're dismissing and invalidating what I'm saying. So I agree with that, but that's why I asked that question. You know what I mean? So it's a very, it's very, yeah.
We need to validate each other's experience, and it's part of why people enjoy therapy, or let me say enjoy, and everybody does. Part of what makes therapy helpful or useful is somebody sitting in a room and giving space to what you felt with no judgment. We're not saying you're right or wrong. We're just giving you a space to experience it, to validate it, and then help you now process and move forward.
Okay, I remember, it's funny. I have a friend that believes that therapy is for women, and that men. Hold on, he says therapy is for women, and that men should do more performance coaching. So like that's his saying, because he says women thrive in discussing their feelings, talking through what they're going through, and they thrive in that, and that men really don't need that. So I mean that's his opinion, but because when he was saying it, I was like, well, there are so many people who are performing well, who are very successful, that still take their own lives, that are still like committing suicide. So clearly, performance is not necessarily an indication of health. You know what I mean? Of being healthy.
Especially because I heard this research quoted at a conference I went to. Women can bear a lot of stress internally way before they say something. And so that would mean that women are out there living and performing and doing, because trust me, just like how men, I don't, I get very skittish in gender conversations, but I do believe that yes, there are some intrinsic differences when it comes to emotions. There are some universal truths that anything not processed is going to eat you alive if you do not get it out. And I'm not saying get it out and fling it on people like it's some kind of you know water spray. If you don't do it in a proper way, women can keep things internally and men can keep things internally and never ever say to you what's going on. And they are killing it at work and they are successful at their entrepreneurial endeavors, and then their relationships are terrible. Or they have some kind of addiction that they're dealing with, or they're honing it through what looks acceptable, like they're really huge muscles or tons of coffee, you know? So I don't think it's not a gender. Well, as you said, you notice it's not a gender thing. And performance coaching, I would say if men were out here just doing performance and when we're doing relationships, how would that work for romance? If we doing real emotional talk and you're doing how will I do at work, when you bring that home, what that look like in a marriage? If you're out there focused on work and she's focusing on her feelings, how are you going to have a talk when you get home to address a problem in the marriage? What do you mean? I'm doing well at work. Yes, but you're not communicating. That's okay. manager, I'm a CEO. No.
I think they're all right. So the theory is this that like a lot of times therapy, a lot of problems that reasons why people can be are in therapy could be solved with money. Like if you're earning a lot more money, a lot of your problems could go away. Somebody bills are stress them out, them not like them job, them type of thing there, or them not in a happy, them annoyed, like certain problems could be solved with just like, oh, you don't like your job, quit. You have the money to fall back on until you find a better job, or you're not satisfied at your work where you live, move. You know what I mean? Because you have the money that you can afford to leave. Or you're stressed out, take a trip because you have the money that can afford you to take a trip. So the saying is, if you're having some certain problems you're having can be changed if you just like apply certain skills, get a better paying job that affords you a better paying job, and see how much of your problems you still have. But that's the argument that's the logic of where he's coming from with that, you know. And this thing is
How
also
would
like
that work for like the gentleman who killed himself? Wow, his name just slipped me. Who was a comedian? Oh my goodness.
Jamaica.
White guy, American.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Mrs. Doubtfire. Oh, my brain can just forget. Yes. Money.
No, well, he killed himself because um he was developing dementia, so he was going to lose.
Mental health. Money could, why would money apply to that? I'm saying that to say him, and there are many celebrities who have committed suicide from depression, male and female. So to say that money would fix a mental health problem is to say that so somebody who has cancer shouldn't kill themselves. It's the same. A mental health issue isn't solved with buying more things or going on a trip. It's solved by getting the mental health help, to get the therapy, to get the healing you need to be able to live healthily in any sphere that you're in.
And you don't think so? I agree, because there is some emotional work needed to be done, and if you don't do the work, I know too many people of like they think that, oh, once they become successful, this will solve their problems. And they get that
That
success.
also is a mental health challenge, I think. If you think that money will solve your problems, you'll never have enough money. To think that an external thing is what makes you better, you're already at a disadvantage. Being better is what makes you better.
I mean, true, but you can be better, and if your bills them still a pile up, there needs to be like, what I mean? Like, I agree, And as I say, I've met people who have like who worked hard to get what they wanted, they got what they wanted, and they were like, why do I still feel like, what I mean? Why do I still feel this way? You know what I mean? So
And I agree with you. I don't want to take away your point that it is hard to be mentally and emotionally stable when you are in crisis mode, meaning, as you explained, you're not able to meet all your financial needs, you're unable to live day to day. That is going to significantly impair your ability to function. But I do still think a mentally, emotionally healthy person would be able to address that in a better way than somebody who is not mentally, emotionally healthy.
okay, so what preventative measures do you recommend for promoting positive mental health in children, even before issues start to come up?
Um, Whenever I get to that question and I think of what the answers are, I then feel bad for persons who aren't in that situation. So the ideal situation is mommy, daddy, healthy, spending time with their child, listening to what they're going through, validating their experiences, teaching them resilience, having community. Can you imagine a person from the inner city hearing this right now and being like, oh, so I guess I will never have a healthy kid. I just feel I feel I feel challenged in saying that. I think what I would want to say is um getting the education that you can on what is best for a child, and then learning your child and what works best for yours. I think is one of the best ways to be able to raise healthy children. The education, along with the effort, um, and then your own self empathy, because you're not perfect. I fully get trained in child counseling, and I will go off on my nephew when I'm tired, when I'm frustrated, when he's disobedient, and I know all the techniques, and I still will react because I'm human. So education, effort, and empathy, what I would say is needed to be able to raise healthy children. The education on what is needed, the effort when you don't feel like it, putting in the work, and the empathy for yourself. You're not perfect. Go back and apologize. Let them see you're human, and that's, I think, will help the child to see this a whole, the whole of getting better.
Hey, let me ask you something. No. I wasn't laughing at that. You said apology and something just remembered, and I was laughing. Why? Why do most women don't apologize?
Why do most women? I don't know why most
Do you
women
okay? Do you apologize in your like with your boyfriend? Do you apologize? Really? Can you give me a situation last you apologize?
Yes. He complained that, well, this person wasn't a boyfriend, it's just a situationship, as you guys call it.
Okay.
And I guess during the situationship, I was listening as much as I should have. And the Holy Spirit convicted me. And so one day I called him, even though we were no longer really communicating. And I said, I was wrong. I didn't listen. I should have listened more, and I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Were you trying to circle back? Were you trying to get him to come back in? Can you say what?
No, no.
Oh
I
no.
just I felt really impressed upon by God that I was wrong. And so I went to
And
ask
what
for
was his
forgiveness.
response?
Shock. Um, and I again, I've mentioned in your show, and I don't think your show is necessarily Christian, but for me as a Christian, his response affirmed that something God wanted for him, less for me and more for him. And so I'm glad I obeyed and apologized and asked for forgiveness.
Okay. And he forgave you?
hope so. He
What do you
said
mean?
so, but
He
I
didn't say
can't
nothing?
guarantee his heart. Huh?
Oh, he sent it as a text.
No, no, I spoke on the phone. And text that. So I'm like, text an apology.
Some people will text, you know what I mean?
I mean, I guess
But
so.
there was this like a argument a friend was saying that how women never really apologize, and this is why I'm always just kind of like it's always bad to make blanketing statements because they're always. I mean, people are people. You know what I mean? So I feel like people. I don't think I really. How about exes? I think one girl I know like apologized for something that she did, which was definitely like it was deserved when she did, and I didn't. Even after that, I was like, cool, but no, you know what I mean, to set my boundaries. But in general, is it? Do you think there's an issue with like accountability or apologizing in relationships? You think men apologize in relationships?
So here's my challenge with that question. Do I use my experiences or what people say? I have had persons not. I have persons had. I have persons do it way after the fact. And I believe that was God just validating that what they did was wrong. And by that time, I'd already forgiven them. Um, I think humility is hard for humans. And humility requires a level of putting somebody else before you that isn't natural for all of us. And so remember, I said the Holy Spirit convicted me. I didn't say I just saw that I was wrong. And I'm not saying that persons who are not Christians don't have the space to do that. I think that people can be humble, but very hard. Try it is much easier. You defend your right. I have a reason. You know how we are? We can explain why we do something and we judge why somebody else does something. So I'm in a rush to get somewhere for my child because they're late and I bad drive somebody. I have a reason. And so I justify my wrong. I'm in a car and somebody bad drives me and they're a terrible, whatless, disgusting driver. I have no idea that the person in there is also sick or in the hospital. I don't know. But I justify me and I judge you. I think if we did less of the justification and more of the not. if we spent more time esteeming others and seeing, okay, what is the reason why, and being self-aware to be, okay, what about what you're doing is triggering me to respond this way, we would have better relations. And I'm not saying it because I've attained nirvana. I am still working on this. But when I look at stuff, I'm hesitant to make these blanket statements because I've seen guys apologize and I've seen guys not apologize. I've seen girls apologize and I've seen girls not. And I think when we make these blanket statements, we enter into relationships with these predispositions of how they're going to be and react in that way, and don't allow each person to be their person and don't allow each person to grow and change, which is pointless.
Mm. Mm.
We're still on topic. I've probably gone way off.
No, I kind of like when we have we're on a segment where there are certain things I'll ask, that comes up, that's when you bring up because I'm very curious. Okay.
My last point to that, sorry to cut you.
Mm-hmm.
My last point to that is that we need to be careful not to let our hurts from past relationships create worldviews on all relationships.
Mm-hmm. But that happens though, especially if you see a trend. I mean, yeah, but because like, especially if you have like more than one relationships and you see a trend. I was watching a video last night with Tim Ross.
Yes.
Yeah, Tim Ross, and he was debating this woman. I've never seen her before on my YouTube page, and it's like this woman that had like everything that has gone wrong in her life. She blamed men, and it was just like Tim Ross and the other two guys were like. I mean, to me, I won't say they were placating her, but they were really trying to see her point. And, because, everything. She was like, she had a bad relationship. Her father punched her mom. You know what I mean? Her father was very abusive and an alcoholic. So that men. Then she had a mentor that tried to take advantage of her when she was 19. Man. She had bad relationships with guys she was dating. And it was just like everything. And they were like really just like listening to her, hearing her points and giving counteractions. Now, me personally, I'm very much just kind of like, if you have a perspective as that, I'm not going to try and change it. Because I feel like there's nothing I can say that will really... if someone has a belief, like it's a confirmation bias. You're going to look for whatever can justify what you already believe. So like there's not much I can say as a guy that would really change that person's mind. But I really liked how they were really working, especially Tim Ross. He was a guy that, him start crying. He was crying. I was like, it shouldn't have happened. My soul weeps for what we went through, blah, blah, blah. But I saw that and I was just like, and that happens to us. You have some man that get them heartbroken in high school and them say, my foot on dog. And man, big 38, 40. Still I move immature because of a hurt he had in high school that he never just move on from. You know what I mean? So we all have those type of things of what happened.
I was like, yep.
Yeah, we all have like hurts that we still we don't process it. And we don't work through it. So yeah, and we'll just be like, women are like this, or Jamaican woman across it's foolishness. You know what I mean?
It is, and it's negatively affecting us being able to have the kind of healthy relationships we can have because we're letting either our hurt or somebody else's hurt define how we approach relationships. Because you as a guy, you're here in Jamaica when it crosses. Me as a girl here in Jamaica when it crosses. Then what happens for the puppies? Like, how do we have relationships if we're all crosses?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. Hold on. So, how do you collaborate with other professionals or educators, social workers, to provide holistic support for children? I was seeing some stuff on your status where you were working with like a bunch of high school boys and that type of stuff. Could you tell me about that type of work?
Well, that was more me taking a picture with. I was being a fangirl. The BB Coke High boys who had carried their friend to the hospital, they were getting an award at the office of the Children's Advocate Recognition Luncheon. And I was one of the persons given an award as well for my work in the space of children and supporting children's rights. That was a fangirl moment, like I have a picture with these guys, but outside of that, I have done work in schools. I was a dean of discipline, so I did work with other deans in other high schools to help with the girls at my school. I would bring in therapists to come and speak at the school. I have a list of therapists who I know. And so whenever people are in need of counseling, when I was a dean or even now, I refer them out, and I have a cadre of contacts in terms of social workers that I can definitely make contacts with. I try to ensure I know, and I'm doing it more now. I'm challenged to do it more now, knowing and following persons who are in the therapy space. Like I like what you're doing on your page. I went to look. We have a list of you're developing a list of therapists and how to rate them. I think it's very helpful because persons need to know where to find all the information in one place. So kudos to you. But I try to be that for my own space. I keep contacts of people who are in therapy, and I refer out. So if it's a teen, I know a teen person. If it's a boy, I know a male counselor. Like I try to maintain contacts so that persons can get the help they need. And if I can't work with a client, I'm quick to refer. I don't play hero. If I can sense that this relationship would not be beneficial to you, then I'm going to refer you.
Play hero.
No, sir. Hero work is not my work.
I like that you have the maturity to say that, you can't save everybody. You can't, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think yeah, that's Jesus. Yeah, all right. I have to ask you, when is it that as adults, let's say, let me give an example. I had a very bad experience with my dad growing up, where I felt like my father was not really, he really didn't understand me, and he said some things that like could leave an impression. However, there was a point where I had to kind of reconcile that fact and move on. Do you think that there's a point where someone can be like, okay, you're a grown person, as bad as your trauma was, you must move on from it? Is there room for that or no?
I would use different words, but
Yeah, okay, so I'm wording it poorly. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
yes, I guess only because of my training in therapy, I would say, okay, I use different words, but you're the photographer. I'll use my Samsung phone and take a regular picture, and you'd be like, well, what I would do is, and you put on the different apertures, and you and then boom, picture looks sharp. So it's a matter of just knowledge. That's all. There's a great researcher. I think she's a therapist. It's not. She's a social worker called Anne Mastin, and she studies resilience. She calls it the ordinary magic. And I like it because what it shows and what it helps people to see is that we can overcome adverse experiences. The only way you can be resilient is if you've gone through something bad and able to overcome it. So she highlights in several pillars that are needed to be able to be resilient and overcome. Community, some kind of faith, a positive outlook. So you're able to be grateful, have gratitude, strong emotional awareness, being able to encourage yourself from whatever source that comes from. Yeah. So when you say that you have seen what you've gone through, it caused you emotional pain, I would jump to the conclusion that you've had some community around you, whatever stage of your life at different points, that have helped to support you in some kind of way, even if it's one somebody. You have some kind of a faith to be there's a higher power and a bigger purpose to everything. You're learning to have a different outlook on life, a positive outlook. And then you are increasing in emotional strength on your own. And those things together have helped you to come to the point where you're like, I can stay and wallow in this feeling that I've had. I can allow it to affect how I relate to him and other men, and maybe even women, or I can decide that I want better for myself and do differently.
Next segment now is called Ask a Therapist. I don't know if you've seen this, where I get emails sometimes from people and they ask for advice. And normally I'll ask therapists and you can give me a response. You want to try it?
Okay, I'll try.
You want to try? Okay, so, all right. Here's the next. So here's the first one. This is funny because I don't think this guy okay, so I'm 36 years old and I am married. 6 months ago, my wife gave birth to a lovely baby boy. It was what I needed. I always wanted my first child to be a boy, and this is what has happened. I am hoping that our next child will be a girl. I'm involved in sports and I will take great pride in taking my sons to games. But since my wife gave birth, our sex life has not been the same. She has totally changed. She has lost interest in having sex. I was told that it's not unusual for women not to want sex soon after giving birth. But it's over 6 months now and my wife keeps telling me that she is tired. When she says that, I tell her to rest and we will try later. But later in the night or early in the morning, she's still tired. I know that she's not cheating. She's a good Christian woman. When she had the baby, she had a little tear. But everything is healed up now and she has done postnatal exercises. So I'm wondering why she's making so many excuses. Am I too hard on my wife? Please tell me if I am. And how can I get my wife to consent for both of us to get back to having a good sexual relationship like we used to have?
You want answer?
Can you give it me?
Huh?
Still to get. Um, okay. A couple things could be. Again, this is one question with just one snippet of information, and I don't know the full circle. I don't know where she is mentally and emotionally. A couple things can happen. One, you can be, I don't use a buzzword, you can be affected by the tearing that happened and get nervous and afraid to go or do anything that can cause any further damage. I don't think it's helpful. Really careful. Not knowing her, I would encourage her to, or encourage him to ask her if there's any other reason why. To not wait until he's about to initiate sex, but to initiate a conversation about what's been happening. Explaining to her where he's at, meaning I desire you and I would love for us to, reconnect in this way. But I have been getting from you that you're tired no matter what time I bring it up. I don't want to be insensitive. I don't want to negate the fact that raising a newborn is exhausting. How can I help me to understand what's happening and how can we move forward? What is your desire and how can we get to the place where we're connecting like that again? The conversation will be helpful to understand where she is. I am also curious where she is, but I don't know. Because all I know is you've initiated sex, you should tell her she's tired, and all you're doing is changing the timeline for the sex initiation. I'm not hearing that you're like, hey, here's a need I have, here's a need you have. How can we meet each other?
No, I think to me it could be like postpartum depression. You know what I mean? There's just so many other things that him not asking her like what's going on.
Why the conversation?
Yeah. Like
she's there. Then
he needs to really just have a conversation like, yo, is everything okay? Like what's going on? You know what I mean? Because what is it? It's 6 months, right? You have to wait 6 months after
To even initiate.
I don't know the time. I don't know the time in my head. I'm sorry to be that person. I don't know.
I feel like the body changes so much for a woman after giving birth.
Her drive, her desire, her body, and
Yeah,
what stood out to me was a tear. What stood out to me
Yeah.
was a tear. And when you have a tear and the mental trauma of the pain of that, and being afraid, that's something that needs to have a conversation.
All right, next one. This one is kind of I really want someone to really help this one. This girl messaged me, and I gave her my response. I gave her my not advice, but I was like, yo, but I think I want a woman to kind of, especially someone, a professional, to tell her. So here's it is. I'm 24 years old and accounting, and my partner and I have been in a relationship for about 3 years. In the second year of the relationship, he has been pressing me to have a child. My response is, I'm not ready, in which I think I wasn't. I'm from the country and still living with my parents, so my goal in life is to get a good education and work so that I can get myself out of that situation and be able to provide for myself. And that's what I was in the process of doing. My boyfriend, on the other hand, is just set on having a child. And he's not really in position to handle a child. He has a 9-to-5, still lives with his parents, he plays a lot of video games, and I'm convinced that he has become so comfortable in the situation. He has this notion that I'm going to leave and find another man because I am not ready for a child, and all I want is to be stable, considered going back to school and achieve a house and car. Although I know these don't happen all at once. But I just wanted to make headway in achieving it, and my 20s is the perfect time to do so. I found out that I am pregnant, and it has come to my realization that it was spitefully done. I am considering to leave this guy and be a single mother, in which I don't want. I am so angry to the point where I can't stand him. I cry ever so often because I am going to have to put my life on pause. I trusted this guy, and he didn't care about my aspirations. He only wanted a child. Am I horrible for considering leaving the relationship?
Just one point of clarity. She found out she's pregnant because of what? There's something you said in here.
Spitefully done.
Hmm. Hmm. I would have been saying there's been a red flag from earlier. The fact that he was pushing a child and not pushing a committed relationship where he was going to be taking care of her and the child. Situation where a gentleman is comfortable and being at home. So a man is supposed to, this is my view, it's not his view. Everybody watching is my view. Don't harass the speaker, the owner of the show. I do believe it's a man's role to protect and care for. If you're going to challenge a woman or require of a woman a child, you're going to also take on the responsibility. You're able to take on the responsibility of that. You have not asked her to marry you or live with you or whatever version of a relationship you consider committed. You're both living with your parents, but you want a child. What I'm hearing from the email is somebody who is using the child to keep the lady. Remember, he said, I'm worried you're going to leave me because you don't want to have a child. Are you saying this child is going to keep me to you? That's not healthy. He does not sound healthy at all from before the baby. So if you are not seeing somebody who's going to support you getting to the place where you think is important for you, I don't see how staying with him now after the child is going to help him to change in any way, shape, and form to be able to help you to raise that child. So I don't think it's a healthy relationship. So her desire to leave him, I think she's found a point in her life where he's deceived. He has tried to manipulate, and that don't sound like healthy father potential at all. It takes so much to have a child. It takes a lot medically to have a child, even though in this situation, a guy is trying to do something. The giver of life has given you a child, has allowed you to have a child. And so I don't know if taking the child's life is the way to handle what this man has done to deceive you, because humans can't make you have a child. God allows you to have a child. I wouldn't encourage her to abort. If there is a way to look for adoption, okay, she's not ready to take care of the child, but I don't see why taking the child's life is the answer. Murder because somebody deceived me isn't.
Man. I mean, that's a controversial thing, because some people might be like, abortion is not really murder. But I mean, maybe it is, but in a situation of that where it was spitefully done, that's cruel.
No, the action is cruel.
You put a child into the world that the mother doesn't really want, and the mother will probably resent the child when she see her too.
Mm-hmm. But the thing is, is it now? We go back to the self-awareness and we go back to the inner work. Does this child deserve to be resented because of what this person did to you? You, as a human, our now responsibility, we're not responsible for them. I don't get to treat you badly because of them. I don't get to mistreat you if I got raped. You didn't rape me. This person raped me. I didn't get the work done, so I'm able to have a healthy relationship with you because you are different. This child didn't deceive you. This child didn't make you make me. So the child is now here. And so I treat you differently because you, the child, are not guilty. Why is the child being sentenced?
I mean, yeah, I hear you. I get what you're saying, that we shouldn't sentence the child, but still, maybe put the child up for adoption, and when you feel bad later on, you can go, see it. But because we all know a child is a lot of work and money. You know what I mean? So she not gonna really be able to really get her life on track. She should have left that guy from the minute she said them thing there, She should have left him from morning.
we're not there anymore, but now she's at the point where she is. And I find it very interesting that we're able to question, should I leave him? You're almost willing to still stay with him. But then, so let's address that first and move forward with this blessing. I did a podcast episode on that, a young lady who got pregnant who didn't plan on and learning to see her child as a blessing.
Oh, so she love the child.
Loves her daughter. Loves her daughter.
What about the father? Is he involved at all?
Not involved. Not much to not much to my knowledge. Again, I don't know the full details. From what I know, probably not as much. I don't think
I
so.
don't know, man. You want to do one more?
Not because he's out there. Sure. I hope I'm answering them okay, but we'll see. Let's go.
Let's see. Okay, let's try this one. I've been living abroad for many years. Wait. Hold on, over there. Yeah, trying to receive healing from traumatic experiences, having been sexually assaulted on multiple occasions by various men. I was robbed many times while working with businesses that were run by families. I moved back to Jamaica and I've been trying to sort myself. However, my mother had already cut me off. She did not want to see her children prosper. I moved from place to place as I did not have any permanent residence. At one time, I did not even have a passport, so I could not get a visa. However, a lawyer assisted me. Some people encouraged me to get a man who can support me and give me what I want. I told myself that I was an independent woman and I wanted to support myself. I was living with some relatives and they were trying to control me. I kept reminding them that I am an adult and I can make decisions for myself. I didn't want them to lecture me. One of them said she hoped I was not like my mother. My mother used to hang out with men. They kept mentioning that all the time. I tried dating, but that did not work out. I was afraid that I could catch an STI. I never enjoyed having sex. The last time I had sex, a few weeks later, I discovered that I caught an STI. I had to have it treated. Since that time, whenever I have sex, I become paranoid. So I do regular checkups and I am repulsed by sex. One of the guys I was dating, I told him to go and get a checkup. He never did. People think I'm weird because I am not having sex. Some men have tried to use their money to impress me and get me to sleep with them. The relatives whose home I'm staying always accuse me of stealing if they can't find something they have put down. I feel stressed and don't know what to do. I'm tired of being used, even by my relatives. One relative who is living abroad wants me to come back and work with her, but I am not interested. I've started an online business. It is a struggle. I've had to be pinching my money to pay bills and save a little. I had a customer online, but he did not have a credit card and he would not divulge not much to me. So I have not got far in this business. I have had suicidal thoughts and I don't want to entertain these thoughts. Sorry. I'm trying to stay. I've had suicidal thoughts and I don't want to entertain these thoughts. I'm trying to stay strong and to move to another country. But even to go to another country will cost money. I do hope I'll get advice from you. I keep praying for a miracle.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And I say that because it's multi-dimensional. The sex and the fear of and the repulsion of the sex could very well be just a trauma response to the STI. You believe this happened, you got it, and now you're afraid to get it again. And so avoid it to be able to avoid the reoccurrence of it. Plus, you don't have the money anyway to be treating it. So let's avoid all of that. There is the history of assault, history of being taken advantage of. There is a neglect and disconnect from a primary caregiver. There is the chaos in the family unit where she lives right now. All of which need to be, like, I don't have to be like, hey, tell her to call me. I do think that she would need the therapy to process all of those things so she can be able to healthily move forward, because they have something called adverse childhood experiences, although that's not all in her childhood. The multiplicity, the complexity of that trauma, she needs some time to I don't think I can give her the move out advice. I would definitely want to give her the let's process these individual things one by one, and then look for ways to be able to earn a living outside of what you're experiencing right now. That one definitely needs counseling.
And that's a process too, to kind of work through that of, okay, let's, you know, find a way to get you to get a better paying job so you can move out. Cause that's months. That takes a while.
Multiple, yep, and there's multiple layers. That's not going to be just okay, let me tell you what to do here. Nope. I wouldn't, in all fairness, be like, hey, just get a job, or what do you say to that? Just get a job? No. You go to your parents' the family house, you can't afford to. Forgive your mom, that takes work and time. Like all of the things that you're describing take some work and time. The sex thing, that's trauma. You experienced getting an STI, and so you don't want to get it again. So you just, sex is gross.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's rough. That's a lot to work through.
Mm-hmm. You probably can't afford therapy. So I'm here trying to think in my head, okay, who can I refer? I'm already thinking who to refer her to, but I'll text you off air who that could be.
Mm-hmm. Do you in terms of affordability for therapy, do you do that sometimes where you do it for free? If the person just can't afford it.
I have before. I actually don't do free anymore. I'll do like a minimum payment, like a payment scale based on your income. So that I do find there is some buy-in when you're putting your money on it. So where I might charge generally this amount, looking at a person's income, I do a sliding scale. And if I can't take it on based on my workload, then I will refer to agencies that do provide pro bono sessions. So Family Life Ministries has duty counselors that are every day they're on duty. Well, when I last worked there, which is 2 years ago, so check on that. But last time I was there, they had this thing called duty counselors where you can do a walk-in, and that counselor who is on duty is responsible to see you and not charge.
Do you get drained after sessions, especially with some cases?
Not much anymore. Not as much anymore. I am self-aware enough to know what level of case I can take on based on where I am in my own emotions. So if I listen to a case that's referred to me and I can tell by the indicators it might be one where I might have a transference issue, or there may be a counter-transference issue, or because of where I am in my own life, because unlike, I don't know, an engineer, you can do your work tired. You know, you press the buttons and you do the thing. It's hard to do this when you're emotionally exhausted. And so I screen cases I get, but I also have learned to be present in the moment. And then when I close the door and you leave, it's a mental putting it down. I can't even explain to you that process, but I choose to be like, okay, next client. It took some time. In the beginning, I would just zone out. People would be like, you all right? And it's like, that case was a doozy.
Yeah.
I can understand that. So what continues to motivate you in your work?
I like what I do. I like seeing people have those aha moments. Like, oh, I can do this, or oh, I don't have to feel this way, or oh, Miss Stacy, I was sleeping this week and I haven't slept for years. Those feelings of they got there and I helped them to get there, that definitely keeps me going. I did take a break for a while. I was emotionally exhausted. I do think I had some compassion fatigue. So I'm just coming back into the field of counseling this year. I would see 1 or 2 clients throughout, but I really enjoy helping persons see what they can do to get better. I really enjoy that. I do think I have a gift. I not tooting my horn, but I have seen how I have been able to, with the skills I've learned and the skills God has given me, to help persons get better. And I'm like, why waste that? That keeps me going.
Yeah. All right. I would say that's a wrap. Thank you so much for this. So Stacey, how can people get in touch with you?
They can follow me on Instagram, Stacy's Voice. Send me a message if they need to get a contact with me to get sessions. That's the easiest way to find me right now. Or they can send an email to my name, which you see on the screen, stacyann.smith85@gmail.com.
Okay, yeah, I'll put those at the bottom.
On the screen.
Mhm.
So you're not no longer with family life?
No, not at the moment.
Are
I'm
you
on my
with
own.
any? Are you with any
On my
agents?
own. I'm a big kid
Freelance.
now. Freelance.
Okay. Are you liking it?
So far, so good. I think, yeah, so far, so good. So far, so good. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm liking it.
All right, so once again, Stacey, thank you so much for doing this. Also, you can log on to therapyja.com where we have like resources that you guys can reach out of to check therapists and the affordable therapists, and we also have a review system on the website. Once again, guys, thank you so much. Check out next week. We'll have another interview with another therapist. Thank you much. Take care.